Have you ever been love bombed by someone? You know, when you've only known someone maybe a day or two, you've been on a couple of dates, and they just seem incredibly into you. They start talking about you meeting their family. They start talking about mini breaks that are months down the line. They start encompassing you into all of their plans. They probably text you loads and loads of times in a day, constantly making you smile. And it's really, really intense, and you feel yourself getting sucked in and excited by it, and they're so genuine. And then suddenly you notice that things are beginning to change, and it could happen within a matter of days or weeks or months, but suddenly they start distancing themselves. Just when you've decided that actually, yeah, you might be into that person, suddenly the texts stop coming, they're not as intense as they used to be. You just know they kind of mention about space or slowing things down, or they don't even mention anything, they might ghost you. And you're left thinking, what on earth happened? It leaves people feeling full of self-doubt, that they've done something wrong. They start berating themselves and telling themselves off for overthinking and trying to go with the flow, but you're just on eggshells the whole time. It could be that you are the person that keeps people at arm's length. Do you do that? Do you find yourself falling head over heels in love with someone, but then inexplicably feeling panicky when things get serious? And you get this feeling like you just want to get as far away from them as possible. So you might sabotage the relationship, and then weeks later, when it's all calmed down, you wonder why on earth you did that. And you feel genuinely sad that you're alone again. A possible reason for this is to do with attachment types. In psychology, Mary Ainsworth investigated different attachment types that people develop with their mother or their other primary attachment figure when they were very young. Mary Ainsworth used something called the strange situation to investigate attachment types, and the strange situation is a psychological observational technique which involves very young children aged between 9 and 18 months old. So they would go into a room with their mother that they'd never been in before, and so obviously the room is strange to them, but it had toys in it which the children found attractive. What I recommend is that you have a look in the link in the description below to see the strange situation. It's only a couple of minutes of video that shows you how the strange situation was, the setup of it, and you can see the different children in that. So the observation is a controlled observation, and that meant the setup and procedure was exactly the same each time a child is investigated. The observers watch through a two-way mirror, and they are specifically looking at 4 different behaviours. And these behaviours indicate the strength of the attachment the child has to the mother. So the behaviours are willingness to explore, which means seeing whether the child can use their mother as a secure base to explore their new environment. Separation anxiety, which was seeing how the child responds when the mum leaves the room for a few minutes. Stranger anxiety, which is looking at how a child responds when a stranger enters the room and tries to engage with them. And reunion behaviour, which is looking at how the child responds when the mother returns to the room. Ainsworth analysed how the children responded in the different behavioural categories, and from that she identified patterns of behaviour that indicated 3 different ways a child could be attached to their mother. She identified them as secure, insecure-avoidant, and insecure-resistant. And I'll explain what those mean, but really it's the insecure-resistant one that is most important when it comes to that idea of love bombing and then ghosting. Most of the children were securely attached, and in the strange situation that meant that they were willing to explore their environment because they could use their mother as a secure base. They had mild stranger anxiety, which is what they should have. They had moderate distress towards the stranger. They had mild separation anxiety, so when their mum left the room they would cry a little bit, but they wouldn't be too desperate. The reunion behaviours, when the mum came back in the room, they might have cried a little bit, but they were pleased to see her and easily comforted, and they soon went back to playing. Ainsworth said that for a child to be securely attached, then the mother would have responded quickly, sensitively and consistently to the child's needs when they were very, very little. And importantly, that secure feeling would stay with the child throughout their life. So as adults, they are secure people. They are ready for new, loving relationships and friendships. 22% of the infants were classified as insecure-avoidant in the strange situation. So in the observation, then they were willing to explore because they preferred playing with objects rather than interacting with their mum. They had little response when the mother left the room, so low separation anxiety. They had low stranger anxiety because they responded to the stranger in the same way as they responded to their mother. And with the reunion behaviour, so when the mother came back in the room, there was little reaction. If the mother picked the child up, they would look down and avoid eye contact. And Ainsworth believed that for a child to become insecure avoidant, that the mother would have mostly been disengaged when the child was very young, showing little or no response to her child, so a lot of neglect going on. And as adults, people with an insecure attachment, an insecure-avoidant attachment, would remain insecure-avoidant as adults. So they would avoid loving relationships and new friendships, and they would avoid anything that resembled that closeness to being with somebody which they didn't experience as a child. 12% of children were classified as insecure resistant. So in the strange situation, they were not really willing to explore because they were anxious even with the mother present. They would seek the mother and reject the mother's attention, and so they couldn't use her as a secure base. They had very high separation anxiety, so when the mother left, they were absolutely distraught. They had very high stranger anxiety and weren't easily comforted by anybody. And the reunion behaviour is the most interesting because when the mother came back, you would think that the child would be absolutely delighted to see her return because the child had been so distressed when she left. But the reunion behaviour was just really poor. The child would be incredibly distressed when the mother returned. They could not be easily soothed or comforted by the mother. They both wanted the mother and rejected her at the same time. And insecure-resistant attachment type is sometimes called insecure-ambivalent or insecure-anxious because they want the mother, but they resist the mother. If they're ambivalent, they want it and they don't want it at the same time. Ainsworth believed for someone to become insecure-resistant that the mother would have been inconsistent in her care for her baby, for her very young child. So sometimes she would have been really sensitive and lavished the child with attention, and sometimes she would have been neglectful. And it's that inconsistent behaviour by the mum that has left the child completely insecure. They know what love is and they want it and they crave it, but they don't trust it. So in the strange situation when the mother left, the child was absolutely distraught because they didn't trust or feel secure enough that their mother was going to return. When the mother did return, you would think that they would be like over the moon, but they were angry and upset. They wanted the mother and resisted her at the same time. As adults, that insecure-resistant attachment type could have spilled into adult behaviour. So people who are insecure-resistant crave love and attention because they know what it is. They're constantly looking for love. They fall head over heels in love really quickly, hence the love bombing. But when they get it, oh my gosh, it makes them feel so incredibly uncomfortable. As soon as somebody starts responding positively and reciprocating their loving, then they feel uncomfortable. They feel unconsciously, they don't realise, they feel like they need to sabotage and push that person away because they just don't trust it. So people who are insecure resistant are most likely to have affairs. They're most likely to get divorced because they are falling in love really quickly, but then they are sabotaging. Once they have ghosted someone or put them off, they're left, once the dust has settled and after like a few weeks and they feel calm again, then they might feel lonely and looking for love again because they are really wanting that love. And so the cycle continues. You can't always explain the phenomenon of love bombing and then ghosting someone through the insecure-resistant attachment type. It could just be that someone is a horrible person, and if you think about it, somebody that love bombs you and then ghosts you, distances you, makes you feel bad, makes you second guess yourself, that isn't a nice relationship to be in. So if it is because they're insecure resistant, then actually at least then they can get help. And I'd highly recommend anybody who thinks they might be insecure resistant to get some counselling or therapy to explore those childhood reasons why your care was inconsistent and left you feeling insecure. And remember, it's not an accusation at your parents, because some people have inconsistent care for any number of reasons, like ill health or the need to work, financial reasons, but it still might have left you as a person feeling insecure as an adult. And if you can fix it and have a long, meaningful relationship, then I'm sure that that would make you feel so much happier. And for the people who experience the love bombing and ghosting, you can't take it personally, because if someone does that to you, they've got their own issues, whatever those issues might be.